This one is solving quadratics by taking the square root. So as you notice in this problem, this one's slightly different than the ones we were doing before with factoring. This one is x plus 4 squared minus 4 equals 0. The thing about it is there's only one x in this problem. Whenever you have a problem with only one x, we can solve it by taking the square root. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at this problem and we're going to get the square root part by itself. So I have x plus 4 squared minus 4 equals 0. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add the 4 to both sides. So I get x plus 4 squared equals 4. Now, since the squared part is by itself, I could take the square root of both sides. So this side, the square and the square cancel each other out, and I'm left with x plus 4. On this side, the square root of 4 is plus or minus 2. Now I'm going to take the negative 4, move it over this side, so I get x equals negative 4 plus or minus 2. I now have to do both these parts. Do negative 4 plus 2, which is negative 2, and negative 4 minus 2, which is negative 6. And those are the two answers that I'm going to use. Now, I want to verify those are the correct, so I'm going to check them. Again, take the check by plugging the number into the original problem. So my original problem was x plus 4 squared minus 4 equals 0. So negative 2 plus 4 squared minus 4. Negative 2 plus 4 is 2. 2 squared minus 4. 2 squared is 4. Minus 4 is 0. That one does work. Let's try the other one. Negative 6 plus 4 squared minus 4. Negative 6 plus 4 is negative 2. Negative 2 squared. Negative 2 squared is 4. 4 minus 4 is 0. So they both work. So we'll put in the answers as negative 2 and negative 6 and check answer, and it is correct. Okay, this is example number 2. So I'm going to take the same problem. I'm going to solve it for 0. So I'm going to get the square part by itself. So in this case, I'm going to add 64 to both sides. So I get x minus 7 squared equals 64. Since the square is by itself, I can now take the square root of both sides. Square root and square cancel each other out, so I get x minus 7. Square root of 64 is plus or minus 8. Do not forget the plus or minus. That is very important. And if you do, you'll only get one answer, which is going to be incorrect. So, and remember, when you're taking the square root, you always put a plus or minus in front of it. I don't have to put one on this side because the square root and the square cancel each other out, so I'm really not doing the square root of it. Add the 7 to both sides here. So x equals 7 plus or minus 8. Now I'm going to do both these parts. So I do 7 plus 8, which is 15, and 7 minus 8, which is negative 1. So those are my two answers, negative 1 and 15. And it doesn't matter which way you put them in, as long as you put them in each spot. I'm not going to check this one because it's early, and if I get it wrong, I can always go back and do another problem. It is correct. Now, this one's asking the question a little bit differently than the other ones in the past, but it's asking the same thing. So determine where f of x intersects the x-axis. Remember, x-axis, zeros, and roots are all the exact same thing. It's where the parabola crosses through the x-axis. So in this case, since I'm looking for where it crosses the x-axis, I'm looking for the zeros. So I can just replace f of x with 0. So I have the function as x plus 8 squared minus 64 equals 0. And now look, it's the same problem as we've done in the past couple in this topic. So add 64. So I get x plus 8 squared equals 64. And now I can take the square root of both sides. So I get x plus 8 equals plus or minus 8. Subtract the 8 from both sides. X equals negative 8 plus or minus 8. Do the two pieces. So negative 8 plus 8 is 0, and negative 8 minus 8 is negative 16. 0 is a completely acceptable answer, so we'll put the 0 and the negative 16 in this problem, and we'll check answer, and we're correct. Just like in problem number 3, this one also is asking me where it crosses the x-axis, so the first thing I have to do is replace the f of x with 0. So I have the x minus 2 squared minus 25 equals 0. And I'm just going to solve the problem for the x. So add the 25. So I get x minus 2 squared equals 25. Take the square root of both sides, so x minus 2 equals plus or minus 5. Again, don't forget the plus or minus. Add 2 to both sides, so x equals 2 plus or minus 5. Now I'm going to do each one, so 2 plus 5 is 7, and 2 minus 5 is negative 3. So my two answers are 7 and negative 3. We're going to do the exact same thing in this one. This is the last one in this group that I need to do. We're going to set the problem originally equal to 0. So x minus 5 squared minus 16 equals 0. I'm going to add the 16 to both sides. So I get x minus 5 squared equals 16. Take the square root of both sides. X minus 5 equals plus or minus 4. And then add the 4 to both sides. 5 to both sides. Sorry about that. So x equals 5 plus or minus 4. Now I'm going to do each piece. So 5 plus 4 is 9. And 5 minus 4 is 1. Since this is the last problem in this group, I really want to make sure I get it right so I don't have to actually do 5 more problems in a row. So let's check the work on this problem. So I'm going to plug in the 9. So 9 minus 5 squared minus 16. 9 minus 5 is 4. 4 squared minus 16. 4 squared is 16. So 16 minus 16 is 0. That one checks. Now let's do the other one. So now I do 1 minus 5 squared minus 16. 1 minus 5 is negative 4. Negative 4 squared. Negative 4 squared is 16. 16 minus 16 is 0. So they both check. So my answers are 9 and 1. And we've completed the topic.